floats down here.
Hi, I'm Melissa, your Stephen King veteran.
Hi, I'm Ben, the Stephen King and horror film fanboy.
And hello, I'm Luke, your first-time Stephen King reader.
Happy New Year!
Woo! See, only you guys get to hear that countdown, though, so that's okay.
But it's
It still
still
applies.
appropriate. Happy New Year! Welcome to 2021. Still a shit show, but we're here. We have all new books. We've moved into the new millennia with Stephen King's works as we move into 2021, and we are starting it off with Cell, which was published in 2006. It is 449 pages. The dedication says for Richard Matheson and George Romero. I am, of course, joined by my lovely brothers, Ben and Luke. Hi, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Howdy.
And the back cover synopsis says, on October 1st, God is in his heaven. The stock market stands at 10,140. Most of the planes are on time. And graphic artist Clayton Riddell is visiting Boston, having just landed a deal that might finally enable him to make art instead of teaching it. But all those good feelings about the future change in a hurry thanks to a devastating phenomenon that will come to be known as the pulse. The delivery method is a cell phone. Everyone's cell phone. Now Clay and the few desperate survivors who join them suddenly find themselves in the pitch black night of civilization's darkest age, surrounded by chaos, carnage, and a relentless human horde that has been reduced to its basest nature, and then begins to evolve. There's really no escaping this nightmare. But for Clay, an arrow points the way to his family in Maine, and as he and his fellow refugees make their harrowing journey north, they began to see the crude signs confirming their direction, a promise of safe haven perhaps, or quite possibly the deadliest trap of all. All right, let me start by saying this is actually a fairly accurate back cover synopsis. I feel like they've been missing lately, so good job.
It only took him,
Another
35 or 40 years of his writing career for them to get that right, I guess. So, yeah, not bad, not bad. Hey, if this is your first time here, if you haven't seen our episodes before, we truly appreciate that you're here, and we ask you to subscribe to our channel here on Drawbridge Media, or on your podcatcher if you're catching us there as well. Leave us a review and all that. And if you've been here before, welcome back. I know I am very excited to be talking about more full books in our Stephen King book club every month. So glad to see you again.
All right, so we're just going to jump right into some of our big thoughts, or three big thoughts. So Benjamin, I have you kind of start off for us there.
Sure. So this book, it had probably the most gripping opening chapter. Like this opening chapter hits and you're like, okay, here we go. This is going to be interesting. This is going to be fun. Literally, I think it's like a page of backstory kind of building and everything. And then all of a sudden he's getting an ice cream cone and then all hell breaks fucking loose. And it's like, okay, this is a new twist on King. I like it because I did not read any of the synopsis stuff. I didn't know what it really was, apart from what Melissa had said at the end of last episode was the basic thing I'd heard about. So it was a very good, solid opening, and I can give it full credit for that.
All right, Luke, any kind of thoughts off that, or other thoughts you'd like to
I thought it was a pretty exciting opening for sure. It definitely kind of jumps right into it. Right, we've had some that there's a little more build up and history sometimes, or seemingly completely unrelated things that don't get tied in until the very end, kind of thing. Overall, I thought this got to it pretty quick. It more so than many of the other books that we've read, and maybe this is getting to Benji's point, is it feels very cinematic. Like this is designed to be so visual, and I think that may be why it kind of pulls you in so quick, is because it is a definite visual hook that if you're following along, you're like, okay, wait, like I feel I've seen movies like this. Like it has that kind of that gripping nature of, wow, okay, Power Suit Lady just went crazy, and so did Pixie Dark and Pixie Light, who are characters, but those are just our main characters' quick descriptions of people he doesn't know, just sees on the street going ape shit, basically. But yeah, I'd say it was a pretty thrilling opening.
I agree. It was one of those that you don't know what you would do in that scenario because everything was bad and it got bad fast and then it kept getting badder. Like, because you've got, the people literally in front of you fighting, you've got the planes crashing, you've got the gas stations exploding, you've got people battling each other out of upper story windows, jumping out of buildings, you've got police shooting all the people who are going crazy because that's their best option. And then there's Tom. And Clay meets Tom and he's like, hi. I really like that we meet our best buddy right there at the very beginning. I just kind of want to jump to the Tom and Clay relationship. I was shocked it lasted the whole book.
Yeah. Tom was not the one I would have picked or would have expected to survive. There were, because I like the dynamic. I like the twist and everything. I thought Alice was kind of the shoe, and she was the full on emotional one that kind of went through the most hell, having to battle her own mother and all that. Even Jordan, it's like, meh, he was just a smart kid, that wasn't much to him. But Alice had at least some emotional baggage with her that could have been overcome. So yeah, in that aspect, having Tom went out when Tom's a good character, but at the same time, there wasn't much of Tom character apart from he's gay and he was raised Christian. That was Tom's character.
He had a cat.
Kind of on the nose, on never mind, stereotypes,
And that's the thing, like, he's not who you would expect to live, which is why I liked that, because he was just like an uninteresting, not that he wasn't interesting, but an unextraordinary person.
So I think what I want to add to that is I really enjoyed Tom in this. I think he brought a lot of humor to it just because of his personality. I wouldn't say he was without personality. I would say maybe, like you were bringing up, Benji, his emotional baggage was less involved. It was more of just the overall nature of it, as opposed to being, okay, I had to kill my mom to survive, or the unforeseen future of going and finding Clay's son, right? So I think it's almost, he is there to be that normal person balance of, might not be as fully wrenched emotionally at the beginning, but is there dealing with all of that along the way. And I think that was what I got out of him. He really was kind of a counterpoint, because if everyone was so deep, dark, and depressed, it would have been a pretty boring book. You have to have that levity that I think was able to shine through because he was able to take an emotional step back, I guess.
These are normal people.
Yeah.
They're just normal people in a very extraordinary situation. I'm glad he was just like a normal guy. He was a normal guy. The two older people who were pushing the kids they found in shopping carts.
Mm-hmm.
Normal guy. The two dudes fighting over the keg of beer. Normal guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and that was kind of gonna be one of my next points. Is normal people. However, the wittiest, most quick on their feet people you'd ever meet. Every single one of them. Every single character was a super snarky, witty, smart ass. and like quite literally, and it's like, okay, a couple of them here and there, great, have a couple normal. No, every single one of them gets the one liner. Every single person, it just, I'm just leaving it at that. Yeah,
because I kind of like that, so I don't really, that doesn't really bother me. But I didn't even notice that.
I would say
Huh.
it was abnormally high percentage of characters that had solid quips the whole time. Yeah, usually it's not everyone. This is I wouldn't say it bothered me, but I definitely noticed it. And I do think we have our kind of super powered kids characters again. Both of them had a incredibly specific skill set that allowed them to be the best version of a kid possible. It's like,
yeah. So I never got that much from Alice. I'm not gonna lie. Alice felt a little bit of a normal 15-year-old girl to me. She, shock and everything, maybe, little maybe over analytical of we need to watch them and pace that, kind of
the
thing.
survival skills with she's just an ultimate survival guide because she was a Girl Scout. Nothing hating on Girl Scouts, just saying that doesn't make you
I was
a
a Girl Scout, but I don't
survive
think I
out in the
could've done
wild.
True.
And be able to show these grown men, one who lives rurally, everything they need to do to get by. I don't know. It just was I thought she was her superpower. A little
Fair.
written on the nose for me, but not bad.
Yeah.
I only have one big thought, and it's not really anything specific. It's really, so full disclosure to all of you who are watching and listening along, I have never read this book before, unlike last year where I had read everything pretty much before. This year's going to be very different in that after the year 2000, I got married and had kids, and so I didn't have time to read books anymore. So I haven't read nearly as many of his more recent works. So this was the first one that I hadn't been exposed to. And as I was reading it, halfway through, I sent probably a very capitalized and highly punctuated message to my brothers. I don't know if either of you have it pulled up.
I can get it quickly. It was in the production
Boys,
thing.
I have begun January's book Sell. This was on December 19th last year.
There
And
you
let
go.
me tell you, I am, all caps, hooked, all caps, and worried. And we'll
Mhm.
probably finish the damn thing before I go to bed tonight, even though I only started it 2 hours ago, because I have to know how it ends. This is a Stephen fucking King book, all caps.
Okay. I was in. Okay. Later on, I was talking to Luke, and he was like, it was okay. I don't think I felt the same way you felt. No judgment. It made complete sense to me because I am not saying this book was great. And I am not saying this was like my favorite book ever. I'm saying as I'm reading it, I feel like somebody took a million Stephen King books and was like, how do we make one that's like the greatest hits of Stephen King? And so every moment and every change and every plot twist felt so familiar to me. It's like when I read John Grisham, and they're all the same, but I like them, so I'm going to keep reading them because they're, I don't want to use the word formulaic because you don't quite know what's going to happen, but there are elements of comfort in here because I understand where they've come from, and I was in because I love those elements. So here are the things that I found connections to. First of all, The Stand is really, really obvious because of the whole, and I know you guys may or may not have read these, and that's okay, whatever. The Stand hits me because basically the world crumbles because 95% of the population die from a virus. Spoiler, shocking. Sounds unheard of, right? And then after that, the majority of people who are left have these visions and all trek to one of two places across the country, collecting groups of people as they go. And one of the main characters in that is very much an everyman, which is how Clay feels. Clay also feels a lot like Jack Torrance and all the other protagonists that are authors, even though he's an artist and not an author, but it's the failed artist, the I can't quite catch a break in my chosen what I'd like to do, and I have a failed marriage, and I like, so that felt very Stephen King-y to me. The Tommyknockers, which is my least favorite Stephen King book, by the way, where one of the people finds a buried alien spaceship in their backyard, and then the whole community ends up almost like in the community think with like a mental connection where they all kind of talk like that. And there's more to it than that, but I don't want to spoil too much. So that felt very similar. The ending was very Pet Sematary to me. Like the ending was incredibly Pet Sematary, almost word for word, right? Like, I'm gonna save my son. Okay. Charlie and the Choo Choo. Charlie and the Choo Choo was mentioned very, very briefly in the Midway Carnival as they were leaving as one of the rides. Well, Charlie and the Choo Choo is the insane, evil, demonic choo-choo train in the Dark Tower series that Stephen King even wrote a children's book on. So that was in there. So that's all the stuff that I had thought of ahead of time. And then just now, as the two of you were talking, I added two more. First, Misery, because Misery is one of the best examples we have of jumping right into the narrative of like, okay, what the hell is going on? Because the guy just sort of comes out of the fog. Well, that's kind of what happened here. Not that he was coming out of a fog, but there was no backstory. We got it as we went along because crazy shit's going down. So that felt very similar. And then just now, Lucas, you were talking about Alice and her like, oh, so Girl Scout survival skills. Well, that's the girl who loves Tom Gordon, who loved Tom Gordon that we just finished, because we've got this 9-year-old who's way more savvy about wood stuff than she has any right to be at that age. So similar. And then just in general, like Jordan with his like super smart, I'm this heroic kid. Well, there's our it kids. There's the Stand By Me kids. Like all of those things. Stephen King is such a fan of the 11-year-old boy.
Mm-hmm.
Such a fan of the 11-year-old boy. I swear that's where his psyche is, because everything's around the 11-year-old boy. So, of course, there are two 11-year-old boys, right? Like one that we hope to get to and the one that we have. Like, if you love Stephen King and you haven't read this book, this is just such a good, like, yeah, I'm living in his world. Very, very much.
See, the problem is, you're absolutely correct. He was trying to make the greatest hits, but only did like 30% of them, and it missed on every mark.
Consciously, I don't think it was a conscious thing. That's what I like bringing up John Grisham. I don't think he consciously tries to write the exact same novel every single time. That's just what comes out, and this is what that felt like.
And I agree. And spoilers, I hated this book. Apart from the opening chapter, despised this thing. Actually, no, the first two chapters in the hotel too, that was very cool. But once they made it to Tom's house, it was like, okay, there's not much build going on. It just started going downhill. But you know, it just felt like this was cruise control. He did not put any thought into this one. As you said, it's all of his greatest hits, or he doesn't have the feeling of it, you know, or he didn't realize he was doing it, but it's all the greatest hits, but they're all in mishmash, weird orders, and just nothing works. And it just, you get no resolution at all. And I'm even talking about the son thing, like the Pet Sematary ending, like you get no word on what caused this. Who does? You have Jordan saying, oh, this is probably what happened. Or they have the theories and all this, but it's like, no, even the bad guys don't make sense, because the president of Harvard, you know, he can't be the ultimate bad guy because cell phones are worldwide. This thing could have traveled. So they all just randomly to this one guy up in Upper Maine, and that's where the story just happens. You know, it just doesn't make sense to me.
They talk about that.
They even specifically say that it's almost guaranteed that he's not the only one. He's the only figurehead. That's just who's been chosen in that area. And so
as the mini flocks become bigger flocks.
Yeah, they were saying that they're all over the world. There's likely one of those spokesman type characters.
Fair. I'll back off on that part, but the rest of it, it's just like we get no closure to what the cause is. Like, and as Melissa brought up, you know, Stand we know what happens, what caused this to happen. We know what causes it to, bring about all this crap. This one, there's no cause, there's no resolution. And I'm not saying it has to be perfect resolution. I don't need everything tied up perfectly, but give me some reason for, something apart from just.
My thought on that specifically is I'm going to go and say I didn't dislike this book at all. I wouldn't put it in my favorite that we've read, but I feel like this is a really interesting side story, and that resolution is likely hiding somewhere else in another book. From what I've noticed over the past 5 books, when we're starting to get enough background in my own reading that I'm seeing some of these connections. It just feels like it's going to be one of those things that's mentioned in a future book or has already been mentioned for a future time period book or something. I don't know, that it's just going to come back that like, oh, this also ties into that if you know about it. It's not going to be overtly discussed, but I just have a feeling that it's going to come up. And it might not be in the book selection that we have, or it might not be a thing at all. It's just that's what this feels like to me. This feels like a side story. And we're not going to get that resolution. One, because the people in that story likely will never know. And 2, I think, if anything, it's a seed being set for something else.
So something to kind of keep an eye out for.
Yeah, that's at least how I'm viewing it, completely guessing, but knowing what he's been doing in these books, that just feels right.
And if that's the case, I'll backtrack and be like, okay, if he can tie the stuff
But
up,
until
and
you have that,
fine.
I can see the frustration.
As of right now, as a standalone, it's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So one other topic I wanted to talk about, then I'll be done. And Luke, because you got some good, deep thoughts to go through, is the headmaster. I had a huge issue with him because, okay, day 1, I get it. I get the cops coming out killing these people because this is what you got to do. By day 4, when they make it to the academy, they're chill. The phoners are calmed down. They're not attacking people on site. They're going into flock mentality. They're going into, work during the day, sleep at night. That's it. And I get not knowing and everything, and wanting to take that step to killing that flock that they had at the school there. But you had no reason to at this point. Let them be. Keep watching. Try to figure out what's going on. You're smart enough. You won't get sucked into the flock mentality of the other, non-phoners. But no, his automatic response is, "Oh, I have 3 healthy people. Go blow them up. Go kill them. Go get them. Do my bidding." And it's like, what the hell, dude? It really bothered me. Like within 3 pages, he's asking them to kill hundreds of them, and it's like, maybe take a step back. I get it from day 1, but at the same time, hesitate. I don't know. That just that was like the last thing that irked me was just that guy had a fitting death, as I can say.
I mean, I'm not sad about how he died. I think it was done great for to move the plot along, right? Because he was going to go kill himself anyway because he was holding Jordan back, and I totally bought it. I liked that the Raggedy Man used him. I like that they used that to show sort of their level of power, but that's the thing. They have a level of power, so what do you do? And that might come up later. But I don't know. I didn't mind that.
I kind of liked him. I thought the best defense is offense, and they had an opportunity. They did their scouting. They figured out the pattern, and they took advantage of it. Yeah, is it smart in the long run? I don't know, but they don't know that at the time either. I think you take the opportunity before they mobilize the next day on you. You have no idea. And I mean, was it 4 against 1,000 at that point? When 4 against basically 0 1,000 is a totally different equation. I get where he was coming from. He knew he was on his way out. I think you take the opportunity that presents itself. But yeah, I mean, it was clearly a preconceived thought he had before they got there. That's why he wanted to show them all of the flock the night that they showed up, like before they went to bed at all. So
yeah, Oh, I know, and I see both sides of it. I just because yeah, I guess it's the Catelyn Stark mentality of hindsight. You chose this, and now they're not. Nola non complate or whatever it's called.
I went with Captain Wittershanks. He who hesitates is lost.
Yeah, I was hoping you were gonna make that reference because
yeah, I almost did. So,
I need to bring those books down here, maybe if I have space.
yeah. So, all right, Luke.
So obviously, I'd say the major underlying theme of this book, which is what causes this zombified, psionic type character, well, herds of characters, is a bit of a technophobic and pretty pessimistic view about society. It's almost like, hey, guess what? Because you use cell phones, clearly you're falling into the mob and herd of idiots, like brainless zombies, right? Like that seems to be the overall message, which around the time when this came out, there were a lot of stories like that. And they even mentioned don't you know that a small amount of radiation is being pumped into your head, like with all of that debate back in around this time when cell phones have been around for 10 years and so, or a little bit longer, but like this was around the time when it was becoming incredibly prevalent, a lot more affordable. And I mean, iPhones were out. So I mean, it's right in this time period where they're just blowing up like crazy. And yeah, it's just funny that, it's clearly making a statement that Luddites for the win, basically say no to technology, you'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think at one point when he wrote this, he didn't have a cell phone. I'm not sure if that's still true or not. He's on Twitter so much, one would be loath to think he couldn't possibly still not have something, right? But this was before smartphones were super, super huge, right? It was more about the cell phone as opposed to having the big, my entire computer life is right here next to me. By the way, I'd totally be a zombie. There's no question, except that I don't actually talk on my phone ever. So
Same.
it's really like that was one of my things. I'm going a whole other, I'm not even commenting on yours. I don't know if there'd be as many zombies because not as many people talk on it anymore. They use texting, so and messaging. So that's one thing.
Or even the Bluetooth, which means your phone's not next to your head anymore, so you're fine.
True. So the other thought about that in the book, they mentioned that everybody was looking at Alice so shocked because there were no teenagers. There were young kids, not very many, because most of them probably got murdered by their crazy parents, right? But a few, and a lot who were Clay's age, which is 30s, right? And even he was very young because most people in their 30s 10 years ago had phones. And so it was really like an older generation. And so Clay was a bit of an anomaly. And I mean, Alice was like, unheard of that there was somebody in that age group who didn't have a phone. So I do think they kind of commented, like there was some underlying hints of who would have been impacted to kind of go along with your thing, because absolutely, right? I mean, you're a lot more likely to not have a phone if you're 70 than if you're 25.
Yeah. But along with those lines, just for the Alice thing, I'm pretty sure they said her and her mom shared the phone, or she saw her mom on the phone and got rid of hers. Like she had the mentality not to use the phone after
I
that.
thought mom had borrowed hers to call dad to make sure.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah. So that's what it was. And yeah, it's the technophobe. I do like the callbacks to the mid 2000s. You have a lot of 9/11 talk, especially in that first couple chapters. It's like, oh, they're attacking us again, and all of a sudden they're going back to
the jumpers.
And the jumpers, talking about the Iraq War and everything, and Afghan and everything like that. So I like those. They're not callbacks for the book timeline because that's what was happening during the book. But for now, it's like that was 14, 15 years ago now, and it's like, wow, okay. And then, thinking about it, it's like 15 years ago. Where was I at? With it.
I'm a 1-year-old.
I was just getting out of the academy, and I was definitely a cell phone user. I would have been a zombie, hands down. And I knew, I was probably one of 75% of people that in my group circle that had cell phones. The other 25% didn't, and being 20 something at the time. So it's just like, yeah, I see exactly what you're saying, Luke, because like the people that I knew and know that still didn't for a long time afterwards, definitely not the ones you want surviving an apocalypse. Just saying personal experience, because they're, either the super elderly, which not a problem with them, but like the ones who are the government's gonna get my, I'm not gonna, the Dale Gribbles, I'll put it that way, the Dale Gribbles of my friend group, of that time frame.
Yeah, so I mean, if we're gonna put it in terms of how old we were when this came out, I would have been around Alice's age, a year older than Alice, and yeah, I had a phone. I think I'd have been not affected. I was definitely not on my phone. I still try to not be on my phone. I hate talking on the phone. Don't call me, text me. But that's true, because I won't answer if I can't.
Same.
You're driving, and even then it's iffy.
That's true. That's definitely true. But yeah, so I guess I'm trying to put myself in her shoes a little bit, in the perspective of that's how old I was. And I don't know, I feel like not every single kid would be on their phone so much that she's the only one we see in that age group. That's where maybe in the middle of town, downtown, slightly different, but even then, I maybe a little too drastic on the cutting of that entire age group. But I get the point that's being made, that absolutely a higher percentage, unproportional percentage would be affected.
That, and as they said, when shit starts going down, your first reaction is, let me call someone and find out what the hell's happening. And that's the it's always going into the terrorist mentality. It's never the first bomb you have to worry about. It's the second and third, when people are rushing in to help. You have the crowds rushing out, the first responders rushing in, then you got to worry about those backup ordinances. And that's exactly what the cell phones were.
I was going to pull out my Mockingjay book, because the entire ending is based on that exact, but Layla has that upstairs. I have all the other books in this series right here. But I agree with you 100%. It's the first one is just the getcha, right? That's
the bait.
Yeah. And so that's why, like, I wouldn't have been affected on the first one, but I would have seen crap going down and either would have gotten called into work or something like that, or I would have thought, I need to call, do I need to come in, or what the hell's going on? And that would have been my first reaction. And yep, I've been crashing my car.
Okay. Luke, I feel like you have a bit of some zombie commentary here.
I do. And so obviously, as you're reading this book, if you've watched any zombie movies or post-apocalyptic movies, I think you're going to see a lot of similarities, right? It's just in that vein. I do think there's a lot of, I kind of briefly mentioned this earlier, a lot of levity. There's a thread of levity throughout the entire plot, right? It's still kind of, everyone makes jokes about it along the way, just as maybe even like a survival thing, so you don't mentally crack. Like, hey, if we can just stay light about this as often as we can, because everything else is so deep. And that's maybe what gets to Benji's point too, of like every single person had a joke at some point, which might be a little much. But I would say there was some humor without being too Shaun of the Dead or like Evil Dead, like Bruce Campbell. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it was more Day of the Dead or in the shopping mall. That's the one I attributed the most to, movie-wise.
So, yeah, I mean, and there's so many great movies that you could reference, right? And whether you like zombie movies or not, there's a lot of them that suck. There's a lot of them that are really good. But you have to have a certain humor through it, and I think that was achieved here. But there was also some really good, like, rapid acceleration into a post-apocalyptic society, right? It really felt like The Road, Viggo Mortensen, which came out 3 years later after this, but it just had a feeling, or like an I Am Legend kind of in the middle, like especially when they're in Boston. I think when they're in town and before they get out. And A Road to Perdition, I think that's a different movie, never mind. But The Road by Viggo Mortensen, is the one I felt like the most, along with the other Stephen King works that Melissa brought up. But I thought it was well set in its environment. I thought the environment made sense. It might have been a little too quick. I mean, we're talking like 2 weeks and things are this shut down. Maybe a little too drastic too quickly, but I think that's showing the overall point of what he's getting at is, hey, guess what? This one thing is so devastating to, if you take that away from people, it totally changes society very rapidly. But I thought it was hitting those points pretty well, I guess.
Yeah. No, and I'll give him credit on that to a point. It was a weak attempt at a zombie thing. Just in my opinion, there are a lot better examples of better zombie flicks and just stories. My whole reaction to the phoners, though, in the end, they became the Borg. Joy, resistance is futile, kind of
Very
thing,
hive
and just
mind, yeah.
very hive mind. And I'm again not against that if there's a reason for it, like a causation for that, and not just we've evolved now we're floating and we're telepathic. And Stephen King relies on that telepathy. He's got that telepathy fucking bug. It's been in like not everything, but it's been in a lot since the very beginning. And it's just you kind of gotta.
And you haven't even read Firestarter yet.
No. Which is our bonus one, right? That's our special credit.
Extra homework that you are going to have to do at some point.
Yeah. No. All right.
Any other thoughts before we move to our questions? Okay, here we go. I think I'm really curious to hear, especially Benji's answer to this first one, because we don't have an answer, so you're going to be creative. How did the signal get released? Was it really terrorism or something else?
No, it was some jackass from MIT dicking around, and he, thought he was smarter than everybody. Had this cool little thing that, I'm going to put out the signal, and it's going to cause, this little bit of chaos, like kind of a Joker-esque chaos theory, but he didn't mean it on this full scale. It's just some smart dude up in Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I was like, I'm going to do it. Hit the button. That's it. That's
all right, Luke. Any theories? That's a pretty good one. I think that's funny.
Kind of like it was somebody more like Dale Gribble trying to contact aliens and sent out a signal that had drastic consequences that were unforeseen. So that's what I'm gonna go with. Sending out some kind of radio telemetry that just somehow affects the cell network and causes this and brings in some outer terrestrial influence of some sort. I have no idea.
So I think if I had read this book when it was originally published 15 years ago, I would absolutely be on the terrorism train, because that was the mindset of the country 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's the easy choice.
Now we just hate people. So we're going to say that we just hate people, and some person who's stupid did something stupid because they hate people more than we do and did something dumb. I kind of like that idea, because as obviously as many consequences as this had, there's a little bit more hope for humanity if that was what happened than if it really was like an organized choice.
Yeah.
Fair.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree.
Okay. I feel like we touched on this a little bit too. I'm gonna ask it anyway. Was destroying the football field's worth of phoners the best choice? And if not, what other options were there?
Good choice. Right choice.
In the time, I can understand the choice. In the hindsight, obviously, it was the wrong choice.
Still
The better choice. No, because you're only going to, as you said, you're only going to kill a few dozen of them instead of, you know what? Let's not try to piss. And they already knew there was telepathy going on between them because they were singing the songs. They all had the music come out there. So they knew there was connection. So they had to have known. The headmaster's so damn smart. He should have known, you kill this little group, another group's going to be aware of it and probably going to be pissed because they're evolving generations in minutes, over the course.
I'm not going to interrupt you. I just want you to know every time you say the word evolve, I just hear James Spader saying it as Ultron. So you may continue, but that's what I hear. Because we just watched that movie this weekend. Okay, you may
Fair
continue.
enough. No, which Age of Age of Ultron? Okay,
Mhm.
gotcha. We just watched the last one, Endgame. But anyway, so it's that they're evolving very, very rapidly, very, very quickly, and they, you have to imagine you're seeing this evolution. You kill off, let's say 1,000. Let's say you get lucky and get 1,000 in this football field. There's going to be some ramifications. That's why the professor is like the worst character, because he knows there's going to be ramifications. He already told him, I'm going to kill myself. I don't give a shit. He's already out. He's already burned the fuck out. He knows what's going to happen. So he's like, I'm killing myself. You go do this, and I'm going to kill myself while you do it. So he does not have to suffer any of the consequences. The other characters should have taken a step back and been like, especially Clay, once the guy said, I'm going to kill myself while you guys are out doing this,
He doesn't tell him that until after it's done.
I thought he
It's
said he
after
told
it's
him
done
it was
that-
after. Okay,
Yeah.
fair.
And it's
I
it's
wasn't
not
sure on
until
that.
after that they realize that there's really a telepathic long distance communication. They didn't know that was all instantaneous the whole time. They were thinking it was more of a short range frequency, which is how they were all sharing the radio signal. Was they were sending frequencies through each other, which is what I think their original theory was. And it isn't until after that they hear screams from the next town over that they're like, oh no. Like that was, I think, the change. They were hoping
Fair.
to get it before. I mean, I don't know if they realized it was going to be a spreading evolution of long distance telepathy, at least how I read it. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's still the right choice. You take the chance. You wipe them out when you get the chance, and it might be a small thing at the time, small effort thing, and it might not be as big of an issue or a big of an effort as you want it to be. But there's at least some kind of bubble that they've created around themselves of safety. They're not completely surrounded at that point. I don't know. I think you take the chance.
I say blow them to hell because at this point it's them or me, and I'm going to take out as many of those fuckers as I can because I want my world back, and I can't share it with them.
Yep, that's where I'm at with it.
At that point, maybe the phoners at the end, but not the ones at that time of the book.
Yes, the ending mass spree, perfectly fine with. The bus and everything, perfectly fine.
How
Football
is it
field,
different?
football field's different. Way too
How?
early. Way too early. You didn't know what was going on. You didn't know what they were trying to do. You didn't know their plan. They'd already
They were
stopped killing.
people.
No, they'd already stopped by that
No,
time.
you don't know that. They didn't know that because they had seen in Tom's backyard them kill each other still.
That
The
was
only
2
reason
days
they
before
weren't
that.
killing is because all of the live people were traveling at night and hiding.
I wouldn't take a single day of them not killing anybody as a new pattern necessarily.
Mhm.
That's when the initial is that dangerous.
Personally, I myself, I would have done the same thing. I would have been the first. I would have been the one driving the fucking gas truck. So I can't. But I'm also playing a little bit of devil's advocate, and also saying, take some time, look into it, because I wouldn't have.
You also can't look anything up because you can't use your cell phone.
You can use the internet. The internet's never been fucked. It was just a cell phone signal. You can use the internet. Internet should still be working at some points.
If they
Until
have
we-
electricity
yeah.
and a connection,
Yeah,
theoretically.
power was all down was the issue with that.
And we didn't have smartphones at that time, really.
No.
Right. And really, they
Yeah.
don't know until later, if anything. Even if there was no emergency internet at that time either. I mean, servers were almost guaranteed down as well with the power.
Yeah.
Okay, question 3. This book happened in less than a month. From start to finish, it was not even a full October.
Mhm.
What does this new world look like in 1 year or in 5?
It's an ant colony. The
Do you think
Boners
they
are.
survived the winters?
Oh yeah, yeah. Because
Maybe
anything
not in
below.
Maine, but further south in the country
I
for
mean,
sure.
yeah, if you get St. Louis and south, you're gonna survive winter. You're gonna, survive, into well temperatured weather. And we don't know if they breed. That's the question. But they're evolving.
Well,
So
they're going to run out of food because they don't cook or know how, like,
true. But
unless they
again,
evolve.
we only saw 2 weeks of them where they evolved, surpassed human beings by tenfold, being able to levitate, being able, telepathy. They'll figure out feeding, and I believe they'll figure out sex too. So they'll end up breeding, and within a year, it'd be the entire planet would be would be an ant colony.
I'd like to say there would be a resistance, in that amount of time. I would like to say that
An organized
a
resistance.
more organized resistance. They were already starting to. Our characters were going to go isolate in a cabin at the end of it, right? That was the thing. Go get in a place secluded so that you can't be stumbled upon as easily. But after that, like that next year, I feel like they're going to do whatever they can to get to some kind of group or organized situation. I mean, that's what still ends up happening. You watch The Walking Dead, people will still congregate back and work together. The normies would end up going back to a civilized society basis. Just innately, I think that's what they're saying the difference is we'll still congregate together to help each other while they are congregating to defeat us. So to an extent, we would have to come together. And whether or not that's possible or easy to do, that's tough, right? That's definitely going to be tougher without having the use of cell phones. But guess what? Landline, if you can get power back up, landlines still worked. Internet, we assume that still works just fine. And really,
TV radios,
the
possibly.
cell phones might be fine now. It could have been that one-time pulse. It might not be an issue anymore. I don't know. It's
until that particular server or whatever shuts down, right?
right. So
'Cause
that's
in
what I would
fairness,
hope for.
in fairness, they were saying that the pulse, was weakening. The new people that were getting repulsed or new pulsed wasn't as affected. They were breaking away and everything like that. And I get that. My thought process with the ant colony, ants aren't aggressive towards humans, and I don't think the phoners inherently are aggressive towards humans. They're just a new species of Homo sapien or Homo erectus or whatever you want to call it. They're just a new breed of that will evolve into an ant colony source. So you're right. The normies will probably live in the far north where winter times the phoners cannot survive, will not be able to survive until they figure out shelter. And hopefully the normies would maybe see this as more of an evolution process over a insurrection kind of thing, and they could end up working together. I don't see that happening because I know the human race, and I know if you're not like us, you're not one of us. If you're not us, you're below us on the food chain, which in this instance you're not. But I'd like it, that it come to grips, working equally together instead of resistance kind of thing.
All right, last question. I'm going to tell you my answer is I don't care. But here's your question. Was Clayton able to fix his son?
I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. Do I really think so? Probably not. But I do think there is this is definitely the part where it's most similar to Pet Sematary, right? And we know that there was still some traces of their real selves in them when being brought back from the dead, kind of thing. And I'm going to go ahead and put this in a similar boat, that since they weren't really even dead, they were just changed, that maybe they can be changed back, be repulsed, right? That was the idea. And since his wasn't one of the full-blown, early on, completely change your entire nature, I'm gonna say there's a chance. Maybe not fully back, like same thing we got with Pet Sematary, but maybe enough. Maybe just enough.
Okay.
I will say that that was my favorite part of the book, and this will go into my favorite thing because that's when the book ended, and I'm fine with whatever way it was because I don't have to read it again. So that was my favorite thing. So no, I don't care. It's one way or the other. Man, it doesn't matter. I'd like it if he did come back, but I don't care.
I wish he would have given up on his son and would have just stuck with Jordan, because that's a kid he could actually raise. Isn't that terrible? That is a terrible thing for me to say as a parent.
It's really
But like,
not a very good thing. Yeah.
I don't have hope that it would work, and I think he's wasting his time.
I would do it.
It's worth a shot.
I mean, I
It's
probably
worth it.
do, because like I like my kids and I would miss them and I would want to
And
do
he
everything
plans to
I
go
can.
back to Jordan anyway. They have
Yeah.
specific plans to get back together.
And here's the thing: you would try. You would absolutely try it, and if it didn't work, then you figure out what your next step is. Are you just putting down a dog who's no longer your son,
You bring
or
them back home with you.
yeah?
Okay.
Have you guys ever
toss
seen the movie Fido? You should watch that.
No.
No.
You should watch that. It's about
No.
zombies being taken in as pets and housekeepers.
Oh,
It's
I
pretty
think
funny. It's worth experiencing. Is what I'll say.
I don't think
It's
I
so
can do
weird.
that.
It's so weird.
I remember that. I just have never seen it.
Okay. Let's get to my favorite thing. Luke has one and Benji and I don't. So Luke goes first.
So there were a lot of cool scenes, I thought, and whether or not I agree with the overall message of the book, I thought there were some good scenes. I really liked Jordan's mad dash when he gets kind of pushed out the window and has to run and get the bus, and luckily, yes, it's filled with all this explosive material, and the theory was correct, right? That it wasn't just something that, what was his name, Dan, was just blowing smoke up Clay's ass. But I love that, like, it took him longer because of how difficult it would be to, like, get there, even though it wasn't that far away. I don't know, I just really thought that was one of the more exciting parts of the book. And guess what? It was a real win. I mean, that, I think, hands down, it was devastatingly effective. And big explosion, come on. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe a little convenient, for sure. But for how short this book was, you had to have a big blow up everything scene, right? And I thought it was cool. And I'm glad it was Jordan that got to do it, even though I think you probably could have sent somebody else too. But I like that Jordan got to do it, even though he's a little overpowered. But I'm good with it.
Benj?
Just give me 1 second. I'm trying to find the names. See if I can
Then
find
I will do mine while you do yours, if that's good. I liked a lot of this book, but again, I liked a lot of this book because it felt so comfortable to me. And something I don't know if I liked it, this part specifically, but I liked what happened with it. The idea of them being up on almost a gallows type stage in the dream, and being on trial and having the masses there to sort of deal with them, right? That idea of like, you put the bad guys on display, or that the bad guys put our guys on display, right? Well, that happens just like that in a different book by Stephen King. I'm just going to leave it at that. We haven't talked about it here. And so to me, I was ready for it when they had the dream. I was like, oh, and because it's one of my favorite parts of that book, I was so excited. But I loved that they preemptively said, fuck that, we're gonna blow this shit up and get out of here. We're not even get to that point. Like, that the protagonists took action to prevent that. And so it's kind of like Luke's favorite, but it's for a different reason. I like that they were able to get themselves out of it before we got to that point, because that circumvented my Stephen King like level of, ooh, I know where this is going. And that was like, oh, I didn't see that part coming. So I liked that a lot.
So thinking about this, I'm obviously I do enjoy that was one of the better parts of the book. But the first chapter, like I said, is overall my favorite. But the cop showing up and he's like, gets out. What's your name? Where are you from? Bang, shoots him. All right. So I'm officer this. I was trying to find his name. I'm officer this, Boston PD. You may be called to testify on what you saw here. I tried to render help. He attacked. I shot him. That's what you'll testify. And you'd kill us if we didn't. Or it was something along the lines of like, he's like, and if you say I said that, I will deny it hands down. And it's like, that's exactly, it's like, sorry, it might sound shady, might sound whatever, but nope, you're going to be called to testify. Here you go. Thank you very much. I got to go kill these other fuckers. It was just that quick, brief interaction that, again, in my former line of work, I could absolutely see myself doing that. Just being like, okay, nope, here's this. You saw this, just cover my ass. Okay. And we're out. And so I liked how that was just kind of incorporated into it. And that whole first chapter, just like I said, it was the suck in and just gotcha moment. Because I was all in for the first couple chapters.
Okay. So I have a thing. Almost off topic, but I'm going to move on. For those of you who are watching our live stream or watching later, here are the current rankings of every book we have read so far. So boys, I would like you to go into the rankings of Stephen King and type in where in that ranking list you think this one currently belongs. Don't hit enter yet. Give me a thumb when you're ready. Reggie's got a thumb. Luke does not. I do. Still Luke does not. Luke is typing.
About to be typing. Okay, I'm in.
All right. 3, 2, 1, enter. All right. It gets an 11. I picked 9, Luke picked 12, Benji picked 14. So it becomes 11. So it basically beat out The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. I will update this for next time. Any comments about the ranking, gentlemen?
No. I mean,
I thought Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon was better, but yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay.
I agree.
All right, then. Final thoughts. Benji.
So, as Melissa said, this is a good culmination of Stephen King's everything. In my opinion, though, it hits nothing. Hits none of it. So, if you're on a full-on Stephen King read, it's a must one time. See if you can rent it from the library. Best way I can put it.
Luke?
I'd almost agree with that. I don't know if I would recommend someone buying this necessarily, but if you can get it from the library, I would say that's not a bad choice at all. It's worth knowing about. I definitely, like Benji was saying, there are many other probably better written, even just movies that are in a similar vein that this seems like it's trying to do, but I wouldn't call it phenomenal at that. And yeah, it's worth reading, but I wouldn't spend the money on it necessarily.
I agree with that. It is a really good, deep. I liked it. I only put it at 9. It's not like I think this is the best book ever written. Like I said,
the tough list.
What?
The tough
it
list.
is a tough list. I felt very John Grisham-y about it, right? Like you can pick up Pelican Brief and read it any day of the year, but if you're going to pick up like, I don't know, his 15th novel, it's not going to be as good as his first 3 or 4. They're just not, because they all become, there's just a lot of the same thing over and over again in different ways. If you are a huge Stephen King fan and you've read a lot of Stephen King, I think that this is a really good book because it feels very Stephen King-y in a way that a lot of the books we read last year don't. I felt more connected to what I think of as the Stephen King style than I did in the last probably 5 or 6 months of the book club last year. I don't think it's good. I don't think either of you have read enough Stephen King even to have really enjoyed this. Does that make sense? It's not that, and I'm not saying that you haven't read a lot of Stephen King, but I mean, unless you've read 20 or 30 of his earlier works, Benji's like, oh, it kind of misses. And I think it's okay because it feels nostalgic for me and you're not there yet.
Fair.
So I think it's good for that feeling.
And may I say one thing to that? I would say if you've never read Stephen King, this would be a good one to read. I would not be, if I didn't have any inclination of Stephen King and I read this book, apart from the ending, I'd find it fine. It'd be like, okay, it's a fun, interesting little thing. But having
the ending is very Stephen King. You're right. It might be a good intro.
But having us doing the greatest hits, as we can say it, and then reading this, it's like, and yeah, you had the full knowledge or a wide breadth of his work. Myself having a limited knowledge of it, it didn't hit the points that I'm nostalgic for, but also didn't hit the good points of the better stuff we've read. And so that's where it falls. So if you're a diehard Stephen King and you haven't read this one, pick it up. If you've never read Stephen King and you haven't, and you're interested, give this one a shot. It's an easy read. It is an easier read than most of his other stuff, his epic stuff and his big stuff. It's an easy read.
I would call it a potato chip book. This one went down pretty easy, pretty quick. The potato chip book.
Or like even if you're listening to it, or because if you're listening to it, it was chunked by his sections. Even like, okay, I'm just going to listen to this section, or I'm just going to read this section, because they're almost standalone stories that progress.
It felt like it was a mini series the way it was broken out.
Episodic.
Yeah, which definitely I got some harkening back to Insomnia a little bit, and nothing like specific, but I feel like of the books that we read last year, that's the only one that I felt like was connected into stuff more than other stuff. Not just, hey, here's an idea and it's going to become a thing later. It felt like it was doing its best to connect to things. And I felt like this was maybe trying to be intentionally connecting to other things, which is why I think we're not going to get the information we're looking for, the big answer right now. But I just have a feeling it's going to come out somewhere else. Again, maybe not in a book in our list, but somewhere else in his canon.
Right. All right, guys. I think that wraps us up for this month.
Yeah. So with that said, make sure you're following us on socials at Floats Down Here on Twitter and Instagram. Send us your digital fountain pens to the eyeball at floatsdownhere@gmail.com. Find us at thepodcastthat.com for all of our shows, and subscribe and rate us on iTunes and YouTube at Drawbridge Media.
This show and all of the shows at thepodcastthat.com are produced with the love and support of our really, really wonderful Imaginary Legion patrons. You can learn more about our fun reward tiers at patreon.com/stayimaginary.
Join us next time as we read Lisey's story, which is the story of Lisey Landon, the widow of a famous and wildly successful novelist, Scott Landon.
You'll float too.
Stay imaginary.
Thanks.
The podcast that floats down here.
Hi, I'm Melissa, your Stephen King veteran.
Hi, I'm Ben, the Stephen King and horror film fanboy.
And hello, I'm Luke, your first-time Stephen King reader.